Good evening, guys. Stephen here, the day after Manchester City's 2-0 loss to Leverkusen. And I know I usually do a 5 things learned, but I still think there was lots to talk about because, this game, it was such a fascinating game last night, obviously for many, many negative reasons, that it still feels like the kind of game that we need to sort of do a mini podcast about. I know it's sort of a monologue, really, as opposed to a podcast. But I still feel I want to get an awful lot of my mind about this that doesn't need to be limited by numerical categories in terms of 5 things that we learned. I just want to talk about an awful lot. I'm massively under the weather, to be honest with you. I've got a terrible cough, so if I kick in at any point with a cough, I apologise. But yeah, last night, I woke up this morning still stinging a little bit from that game, probably because I immediately looked at social media, saw my mentions and ats, and saw all the people getting angry and everyone moaning and all that kind of stuff, and it immediately dragged me back into that headspace. But it's also sort of justified to an extent. Last night was an incredibly disappointing game. It really was. And I think I want to talk about where we are after that. The post-mortem is a chance to sort of look at conclusions that were drawn from people and from myself and so on, and talk whether they're fair or not, what we can take forward, what we can learn from this, and how much of this is critical or not, It's very hard to do this because the only ever answer is time. Hindsight is the only way you can really judge anything. Anything that we say now could be drastically untrue in 2 weeks' time because football moves so quickly. That is the beauty and the reason we love football. It's also what makes it so difficult to analyse. And, much greater minds than myself and yourself and whatever have got things wrong. We got the greatest people in the world. We've got arguably the greatest manager of all time getting things so drastically wrong. So what chance have we got of being right all the time? So I'll try and be as fair as possible always, and sort of maybe not leap to conclusions that are too definitive because I don't think it really, I just don't know what that really gains really. But maybe just look at things in the cold light of day and see where we're at. So the thing for me when I look at this game is the overriding feeling. One is of sort of shock really the day after still, and confusion, because it felt really obvious, in hindsight, as always these cases are, that it was always a risk. Regardless of if you enjoyed the idea of changing that many players or not, it was always a risk. There's absolutely no denying that this was going to be an incredibly risky thing to do, and that Guardiola took an absolute massive risk doing this. And I think this has been sort of confirmed by Bernardo Silva. You see this quote here after the game yesterday. He said, but when you change that many players, the chemistry, the connection, it's more difficult to find because those players were not really used to playing together. So it's more difficult. Also, the confidence levels were not as high as players that play every 3 days. But it's football. It's part of it. You take it, you learn, you get better, you move on, you try to go for the next game. Bernardo Silva speaks incredibly well with logic and intelligence. Will be a great coach or manager one day if he wants to go in it. He's absolutely bang on there. I don't think it was ever, reasonable to say that this was very likely when you make that many changes. The chemistry, the connection, those players aren't playing competitive games together, barely ever. And also they're not as confident as the players that play every 3 days. And that's absolutely true. The rhythm and the fitness is not there. So it was always going to be a massive risk. Now, I don't a lot of people have painted this decision as arrogant or whatever. I don't necessarily think it was arrogant in the sense that, he was trying to disrespect Leverkusen or, I think he probably knew it came with risks. But I think Guardiola, and I'm not just saying this, but I do think it comes with the territory. Like, great thinkers do occasionally mad things. It's sort of like, if you look at what scientists do and all that kind of stuff, they will occasionally do stuff that just doesn't make any sense because that's how their mind works. And in hindsight, they'll look absolutely stupid. And it was weird. Guardiola's never done that before. Like, he's never made that many changes for a game of this magnitude, which was sort of galaxy brain stuff from Guardiola. He was very quick to blame himself afterwards. And occasionally you do get that. We've seen Guardiola do weird shit throughout, the most successful time at Manchester City. And I think even if we carry on here for another 10 years and Guardiola won every league, he'd still do weird shit throughout that. So he just does crazy shit sometimes. Yeah, exactly. We all know that's the case. And I do think he was just thought, I think Guardiola is the kind of person who can get carried away with an idea and run with it, and he's so persuasive and so charismatic that the coaches around him might try and, pass, some different thoughts from him, but they might just get caught up in the hysteria too. And I think he regrets it today. I also think, if we're being honest, I think he'll also be incredibly disappointed. Because as much as I think he'll regret it, as much as I think he'll probably think I shouldn't have played that many, I also think he'll feel disappointed by some of those players. And I think that's fair. I think you can be both disappointed by the players, and I think you can both be disappointed by the idea. I think it's very true that it can be in both camps. I think many things are true from last night. I saw a really great breakdown of the game statistically, which we'll get onto later, which showed actually that, a lot of this is actually on the players, which we'll get to in a bit. But I do think, last night it was, when you look back, inexplicable. I'm a reasonably positive person, and I tend to sort of try and see the logic behind what a great mind would do always, and I think it's probably fair to usually give someone like Guardiola the benefit of doubt beforehand, and I do like a novel story, as I said in the match reaction last night. I do enjoy it when a manager tries something so obviously crazy. Like, that lineup made me laugh initially, and I don't get so caught up in a game prior. With all due respect, it wasn't the biggest game in the world last night. I know we needed to win, but it wasn't like the season will change on this level, this game level important. Like, if that was, a semi-final of the Champions League and he'd done that, I would have been apocalyptic. But I wasn't, because I didn't really care that much about it, in the sense that, I didn't. It was Leverkusen at home. We all expected a reasonably sensible win, and we've got games left and we've done well. I wasn't it just didn't feel that crazy a game for me, you know what I mean? And look, I wasn't like anxious about this game going into it, so maybe my reaction was one more of like, Pep. Classic, that meme. It was very much like that, and I sort of gave him the benefit of doubt in my head prior. But looking back now afterwards, it was a really bad idea. It was a really bad idea. And I think Bernardo there, he's sort of, not gone rogue as such, but I do admire Guardiola, Bernardo Silva being so blunt and saying this out loud, because he said, it's not the quiet part out loud, but he said, what many people were feeling. Well, the captain of the club has come out and said that we got it so aggressively wrong, and that Guardiola got it so aggressively wrong. That's the thing, is like, Bernardo's saying it. I tell you, the players will feel it too. They absolutely will do. And then the players feel it, Guardiola wouldn't know about it. And all the reports seem to suggest that they spent an awful long time in the dressing room after the game. I guess there was a sort of post-mortem themselves, and I wouldn't be surprised if this came up. At the same time, it's a weird one, because I don't know, I think pride and ego come into a little bit. If I was a player, hadn't played much, you want to play desperately. I wouldn't be happy with then going, yeah, but Pep, it's sort of your fault for playing me when I'm not ready. It's a bit fucking weak, isn't it? You know what I mean? You've got to also own it at the same time. Maybe you don't want to play with everyone else who's not there, but you've also got to take accountability for your own performance. And some of those players, even with lack of match fitness, it's just not acceptable. It just isn't acceptable. And I don't mind things not coming off sometimes, but I do mind barely anyone stepping up. No one stepping up. It is hard, I get it, but it's concerning that not a single one of those guys stepped up. In the grand scheme of things, I have no idea how much this will change Manchester City season. I really don't. I suspect once, we look at the fixtures, who we got coming up, let me double check. We got Leeds at the weekend, and after that, at the matches that we've got, we've got Leeds, then we've got Fulham, Sunderland. We could win the next 3 games in a row after that, then Real Madrid. I don't know what happened, but I wouldn't be surprised if you get 9 points from 9 there, That seems almost a likely scenario. And after that, everyone's a little bit calm, maybe some people have scored. And after that, we sort of, we go into cruise control and we'll see how we get for the Real Madrid game. But there's no guarantee of that, and I guess all we can do is take it in, isolation now, and work it out, work out what that felt like and what it could do. I mean, the one thing for me that sort of stood out is that this was a result that was definitely avoidable. It absolutely was avoidable. We cannot be making these kind of mistakes in a game of this magnitude. Leverkusen are a good side, but they're not a great side. A heavily rotated Bayern easily beat them the other day, and it's not the same side that went unbeaten a year and a half ago. It's vastly changed since then. They've lost a lot of their key players, And I would be amazed if City didn't feel that they should have won this, and they should have won it massively. I mean, I'm looking at this great article here from Bailey over at the Sky Blue Times. It was very much a read, and you look at the stats. City absolutely should have won this. You know, as you can see there, we were by far the better side in terms of XG, threat, field tilt, possession. High turnovers. You won the ball so many times up the pitch. Look at that. They had the status of a team that won comfortably. And I love this, This was a single match high for high turnovers that City have forced this season. Basically, that the most high turnovers leading to a shot while only leading the ball once to Leverkusen press. We kept winning the ball high up the pitch, but we did nothing from it. We won 16 turnovers high up the pitch, but only 5 led to a shot. And as he said in this article, to have that many opportunities in the most dangerous areas, but struggle to string together 5-yard passes to rush every action, not be clean. It's poor from Bob, Savini, and Marmoush and people like that. They have to be better than that, And that's the thing. Like, some of the stats were really good for Manchester City, but they did not play like players who had the confidence or conviction to win the game. They played like passengers. They played passively, and to me, that is not good enough. It's they didn't play like they're players that had the bravery to do that, and that to me is concerning. So much of the quality came from the players who came onto the pitch. Like, we had 19 shots against Leverkusen. 12 of them came from the substitutes. Shirky had 4, Haaland 4, Doku 2, Foden 1, and Nico Riley 1. So 12 of the 19 came from substitutes. Half of the shot creating actions came from substitutes too. And that is very notable for me. We had more than enough chances, and it starts to get frustrating when you see the stats here, how we went. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's the cumulative XG. We should have scored multiple goals. We had big chances. This is remarkable too. Highest single match totals this season for field tilt, which is, in terms of territorial possession and so on, build up completion, successful take ons, through balls completed, and ball recoveries. That is really, really good. It's really good. And as Bailey put it succinctly here, this wasn't the performance of a team getting played through all game or struggling to win the ball back or building for the opposition. It was a team that lacked aggression and ambition in the final third. A performance of players not brave enough to take opportunities provided them. And that, to me, is what's disappointing. I watched that game last night and I felt disappointed by the lack of ambition, the lack of mentality. We keep coming back to it, but I'm going to go back to it for a reason. In previous years, we had Mahrez scoring a hat-trick in an FA Cup game and then getting benched the next game. Can you imagine that now? In previous years, we had Gabriel Jesus coming off the bench, a guy of much more quality than any of these players I've mentioned there. Much more quality, and I'm sorry, but he's a better player than Marmoush, Gabriel Jesus at his best. Marmoush has got a lot of talent, but in terms of at his very best, Gabriel Jesus is much more rounded. And you might not agree with that, but I think it's true personally. We see what he's achieved, and the performance that Gabriel Jesus gave, for example, at the Burnabout is very best. Sensational stuff, we're yet to see that quality. Then you look at we had a Bernardo Silva playing the right wing at his peak, or we had Sane, Sterling. The hunger of these players to score, the desperation of these players to score. It's different to what we've got. Alvarez coming off the bench. Alvarez miles better than so many of our players right now, and that's the difference now. The hunger, the drive, the determination, that X factor. You don't really realize what you've got until it's gone. But right now we've got too many players who are just not brave enough. They don't. Look, Guardiola's come out and blamed himself. Absolutely, because he has to sort of front it a little bit. But I suspect he'll be incredibly disappointing. And someone said, can we expect those standards every season? No, but I think it says a lot about the individuals. I don't mind if it doesn't all come off, but what I do mind is the misplaced passes, the lack of precision. I'm sorry, these players are capable of making a 5-yard pass to create a chance, and the amount of times they got that wrong. I'm not saying they have to bag 20 goals, but you can see it. You can see it with some of these players. There is not that killer mentality that that underlies great teams, and I understand they make it better with time. But right now, it feels like, and it might not be fair, it feels like a whole bunch of players here they might not have the mentality, which is concerning. Because I've watched a lot of great players. You've watched a lot of great players, and I was incredibly disappointed last night. And I know the team was vastly changed, but I was disappointed by how many players looked like filler. Someone said you were glazing Reinders and Shirky before the season started. Who the fuck wasn't, man? Like, everyone was. That doesn't mean so what? Like, this, like, can we also end this shit? I'm so sick and tired of people going, you said this. What did you say, mate? I don't know every single opinion that you make. And the problem is, I guess my difference is I make YouTube videos and you guys, I share my honest opinions and I do videos for free for what it's worth for no one and I chat to it. And I have an opinion that doesn't go right. You ignore the ones that do go right for what it's worth and then you bring it up and like, you must have bad opinions all the time. Everyone does. The difference is I'm not going to call you out over it and criticize you individually and make it out as if it's somehow my fault or your fault if you get something wrong. So what? Shirky is a cracking young talent. He's obviously adapted to the Premier League. He's barely played 10 games for Man City. He's obviously supremely talented, and I've got no doubt that Shirky's gonna be a great player. Reinders, I absolutely admit, I don't think we all got carried away from Reinders how good he was in pre-season. He was a Serie A midfielder of the year, and he looked cracking. His first game of the season, he was brilliant. I didn't know he was going to dip an awful lot. No one did. I was a little bit concerned about Reinders. At the same time, I also am willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. You know, like Reinders, it could be that Reinders actually just needs time like everyone else. It could be that when Rodri's back, the level of the standards around him, Reinders might look a different player. Like Reinders right now is definitely adapting to the Premier League, and right now he isn't particularly great out of the ball. He isn't creating an awful lot. He's definitely not scoring the goals I expected him to, given his finishing last season. But every player, unless they're abysmal, and I think it'd be unfair to say Reinders has been abysmal. He hasn't been abysmal. He's been average. Sometimes okay, sometimes meh. But I don't think he's been abysmal. Unless they're abysmal, I think you have to give the benefit of doubt for a while, because I think that is fair, because it is hard. Some people adapt very quickly, but most people do take a little bit, time. So Reinders, I've been a little bit, he's flattered to deceive so far, but I don't think he's been terrible. I think terrible would be unfair, but not great at the same time. And I guess, yeah, I'm very unwilling in November to write someone like, Reinders off, yeah. I just thought last night was a sobering experience. I think it was such a weird and egregious mistake from Guardiola to do that. The one that Bernardo's called out afterwards. It was the mistakes that hurt the most are usually the ones that you do to yourself. They're either the ones that the ones that you do to yourself. They are. It's like, why have we done that to ourselves? We played ourselves there. But I do worry. If some of these guys, and I'm starting to get a little bit frustrated, I'll be honest with you, some of these guys have it mentally. Because you know when a player, even if they're not scoring chances, has it mentally. Like, I can't explain it. But you can feel it. Even if they're not good in front of goal, for example, they're having a bad spell, you can still tell when they have that mentality or not, that they're going to eventually become that. You know what I mean by that? Sometimes you can sense when a player, even if they've not scored in 10 games, you can still sense if it's just a bad spell or, and they're actually still killers. Because it can happen to everyone. But, players can go on bad stretches in front of goal. But I'm not... I agree. Shirky has it. I think Shirky has that swagger. Shirky's a good example to me of someone I think who has that. I don't know how far he'll go, but he has that self-belief that I can change a game. I am the man, and I will take those risks time and time again. I think too many of these players don't have that mentality of I can change the game, I'm that guy, and I will do it. And I don't need those guys. I can do it myself. And I don't get that feeling from a few of them, which is starting to concern me a little bit. And I think we look at our very best with everyone available and so on. I think we're a really good side. But I think to be a really, really great side, we have to have a little bit more. And, what struck me is someone said, the players that started last night for us are out wide. And listen, you might find this sounds a bit harsh. Someone said they wouldn't start for Brighton. And they wouldn't. Bob and Savino, Matoma and Minty would start instead. Minty would, wouldn't they? If I was Brighton, I'd probably play those guys instead. And Brighton are a mid-table side right now. And that is concerning. I'm not saying Savino and Bob don't have talent to go beyond them. They probably might do, and I think the only thing that will tell that is time. But right now, and I'm only talking about right now, and you can talk about how far they're going in the future, but right now, those two are the starting wingers that are playing regularly, and they played regularly. They started last night in the rotation against Leverkusen in the home game. Those two, I think, are they wouldn't start for a lot of sides in the Premier League right now. Not in top sides anyway. That could be fitness, form, confidence, but whatever it is, that's the reality. And and it's quite sobering. I think Nico G's gonna be great, John. I got no problem about Nico Gonzalez. I think he's playing with he's on an upward trajectory in my opinion. He's got all the fundamentals. I think obviously the team around him isn't great. Look, suddenly going into midfield with Rico and Reinders, he's sort of left out to dry there. I'm not too worried about him. Then I think Nico Gonzalez is gonna be a really good player. He has the attitude. Yeah, I think he also has the right attitude, mentality. I think he has the ability. Yeah, and I agree. Jake Murphy's better. Barnes is Gordon. They're better than our current wingers. They would immediately start for me. And that is sort of sobering. I don't mind potential, but I think we've got an awful lot of players that and look, this could also be all incredibly premature. Things could change very quickly. That is the mad nature of football, and I don't want to ever say it with conviction. That's why I'm trying to only talk in the moment as opposed to project too far ahead, because there's no point in me saying these players are never going to get better again or these players will be incredible, because I don't really know. I have my feelings on some of them, and I can guess. And I have my worries, or maybe, and I did actually say a couple of months back, and if you watch my videos regularly, you might remember me saying this. I did say that I'm a little bit concerned that Oscar Bob has lost something. I got shot down quite a lot from that. I do feel that way. I said that. I felt like he lost a little bit, like half a yard or something of confidence, and it does feel that way. Like Oscar Bob was such a decisive, confident player. And right now he feels a little bit less decisive, and I don't know if that's fitness, pace, whatever. But I definitely, I'm a little bit concerned, a little bit concerned if he's going to find that rhythm again. And I hope he does, but I can't say I'm not concerned. We'll see. I really like Oscar Bob. I think he's really talented, but right now he's not good enough to be starting for Manchester City week in, week out. And nor is Savinho. Savinho is a talent that I think Savinho is talented. He is. I don't think you can get roughly 20 goals and assists at 18 years old in La Liga and be poor. And I think he started like our biggest creator last season. But his confidence, his ability, it's become tragic actually to watch at times. And it's difficult. And I go through the rest of the players. I was really disappointed in Nake and Stones last night. I was, unfortunately. Nori, there was no chemistry at all with Savinho over on that side. Then he went off at half time. He's a very technical player, but it was whatever. Kusanov, nothing really to report there. And then up front, Marmoush. It's a weird one with Marmoush right now. I don't know how Guardiola feels about him right now. I think his form's looking. I know he's not in the traditional centre forward as such, but yeah, I think he has to do more if he wants it. And I think I don't know what more. Yeah, I don't know. I just I think we're in a situation right now where many things are true, and I do feel we're actually. I feel it's likely. I'm not going to say definitively, but I think it's likely that we very likely, slightly likely. I don't know, but I think it's likely that there's a good chance that we need a few more players of starting quality, and we keep signing a lot of players that are good rotation players. And I think we're trying to sign starters, but we need. I don't know. For example, in your ideal world, if you can bring in a player of Oliseh's quality, and then I'm trying to think of who. Look, the quality will never happen, but João Neves and Olise, people of that quality who absolutely just massively improve the team immediately. Maybe I don't know. I can't. Elliot Anderson's the current thing that everyone talks about, but I don't know if he's there. I don't know. But I'm on about Champions League players, literally ones that come in and just massively increase the quality, and I think that's what we need. Wharton potentially, yeah, but he could. I mean, he might be. I'm a big Wharton fan, but now I'm reluctant to say Wharton and Elliot Anderson because I'm not sure if they even fit what I'm on about. Like Bruno Guimaraes example. Bruno Guimaraes would have been the exact player. If you could get Bruno Guimaraes in now, this second, I'd take him in a bloody heartbeat. I would love Bruno Guimaraes at Manchester City. I know. Well, how old is Bruno Guimaraes now? 28. He's 28. He's just turned 28. Oh, we could get him like somehow now. I'd take him for 4 years. I mean, he's miles better than some of our options right now. And then out wide, honestly, you can get Kvaratskhelia somehow. Not going to happen. You can get, I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, who even is it these days? I'm not convinced on Semenyo. I'm not convinced on him at all, personally. I think he's having the season of his life, but I am not convinced of Semenyo. I don't know. I don't even know. Like, we'll see. I think. Like, I don't think the market is that great for great players. I think it isn't. I think a lot of the great players are at big clubs, and I think a lot of players are actual risks and project players. I think they are. Like, I think that's the crux of it, really. Top buying players from Wolves. It's a decent idea, I guess you'd argue. So we'll see. And I don't even know. I don't even know. It's very difficult to say. So look, long story short, I think it's tempting to make conclusions. I think this very frustrating night, I think it did sting. I think the worst nights are the ones that you do it to yourself and that also shine a light on your weaknesses, because they are harder to handle. They're the ones that, that sting a little bit, because I feel nights like last night, maybe potentially, I don't know if definitively, the only time will tell that, potentially expose some cold hard truths that maybe we weren't ready for. And I do wonder if Guardiola feels the same. I don't know. Someone said he's spoken Aït-Nouri yet. It's weird. Aït-Nouri's season's not even got going yet, so I really find it hard to talk about Aït-Nouri, because I find it hard to talk about him because he's just barely played, and I can't speak with conviction because there's no body of work for me to really judge yet, if that makes sense. And O'Reilly's come in and been absolutely fantastic, so we've not really needed him. And I think, to me, Aït-Nouri is a player that I think would be better on a run of games, because he's so technical and so on. I think he's a confidence player that would need a big run of games, not his one game. Do you think? I think he's going to need a run of games, so I don't really know. I'd be amazed if Pep does that again this season. We'll see. It's very hard to judge, isn't it? But I'm feeling down after that game regarding City. Look, it could change very quickly, but a little bit disappointed. I can't lie. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, give the video a like, subscribe. I try and be as rational as possible. But I'm going to leave it there because it's 8:45, not at dinner yet. Thanks for watching. See you later, Blues.